Hello students, how are you all? I'm sure you're enjoying at home, doing a lot of activities and learning. So today we'll be studying a lesson of English literature, lesson number 5, How Kasia Met Kapila. Now this is a folk tale. Now what do you mean by the word folk tale? So folk tale is an old story that has been passed from one generation to another and is particular to a region or it is telling you something more about a particular culture. Folk tales from different regions of a country help us know more about the traditions, the customs and the culture of a particular region. Now today we are going to read a folk tale from Odisha. Odisha was earlier called as Orissa and it is a state in India, and it is a story about two friends, Kasia and Kapila. Both of them loved each other. They were very fond of each other and they used to, you could say, gel very well. They were inseparable, and then a strange incident happened and they were separated for a while. Now let's read the story. I'll be explaining it to you. I hope you will understand it well. Before we begin with the story, I'll narrate a small story to you before that. And I'm sure you've all heard about Lord Krishna and Sudama. Both of them were childhood friends. Krishna belonged to a very rich, royal family, whereas Sudama, he belonged to a poor Brahmin family. They both had great friendship. They were very good friends. They had love and mutual respect for each other. They were inseparable, and later in life Krishna became the ruler of Dwarka. But Sudama, he lived a very simple life. One day Sudama's wife, she persuaded him, compelled him to go and meet Krishna so that they could also lead a better life, comfortable life. And when Sudama, he went to meet Krishna in the palace, Krishna was a true friend to him and he greeted him very warmly. He washed his feet and embraced him with love. So today's story is something similar to this story. I hope you will enjoy this story. When Kapila grew up, he went to work in a rich man's house. The rich man had a large herd of cattle, and Kapila was engaged to look after them. There was a boy named Kapila and he was in need of work. So when he went around, he went to a rich man's house and he got the job of taking care of the cattle. The man had a son named Kasia. Now the rich man had a son whose name was Kasia. Naturally, the two boys, being of the same age, were drawn towards each other. Both the boys, they were of the same age group and they developed liking for each other. They became very good friends and they enjoyed each other's company. They spent much time together. A deep friendship grew between them. Kasia often went along with Kapila to look after the cattle. So Kasia would go along with Kapila to take care of the cattle when he used to take them for grazing. One morning, the two friends went to the field with the cattle. So both the boys, they took the cattle for grazing. It was hot and wild wind was blowing. So the wild winds means very, very hot, fast moving air, which is also called as loo. And it causes very uneasiness and you may well fall sick because of it. So Kapila, he could not bear the heat any longer. So he called his friend and he said, Kasia, I feel drowsy. I'm not feeling too well. I feel uncomfortable. I feel sleepy. So he said that I will lie down and take a nap. I will relax for some time. I'll try to sleep for a little while and then we will go back home. Don't go away, but keep an eye on the cattle until I wake up. We will go back home together later. So then they both had a conversation that Please stay and you take care of the cattle, and then we will both take them home together. Kapila wasn't feeling too well. He was feeling very uncomfortable, and when he just lied down for sleeping, for taking a nap, he fell asleep. He was fast asleep, and he did not realize that the sun was shining on his face. He was too tired and he remained asleep. And while he slept, a cobra from the jungle nearby, spreading its hood over Kapila's head, sheltered him from the sun. So what happened? There was a cobra which came and it spread its hood and it covered the face of Kapila. When Kasia came to wake up his friend, he saw the dreadful sight. Now see, how will you feel in case you see a snake nearby? You'll be frightened, isn't it? So similarly, the case was with Kasia. He felt very dreadful. He felt very nervous, and he thought, "Oh my God, what to do?" He could do nothing, but he just stood there and he trembled. He was shivering with fear. He was feeling, "My God, is my friend alive? Has the snake bitten him? What has happened?" He was just in a dilemma situation. He was just thinking and thinking. The snake, getting the scent of Kasia, quietly went away. But the snakes, the animals, they're very smart, and as soon as the snake sensed that there's somebody, so he quietly went away. Kasia, he quickly ran to his friend and woke him up. Even before Kapila was fully awake, Kasia said excitedly, "Oh, my friend, what a danger you escaped from." So he is really happy that he's trying to wake his friend, and he's just almost very excited that yes, my friend is safe, nothing has happened to my friend. "Do you know the cobra was here and had spread its hood over your head while you were asleep?" So he's just trying to narrate to his friend what he saw. "How lucky you are, the snake did not harm you." And he says that you're very, very lucky, because a snake can bite a person and the person can die of poison. But nothing of that kind happened with his friend. Now the news of this strange incident spread like wildfire in their village. Wildfire is like it is spreading very, very fast. It's very quick. So the news also, from one mouth to the other, everybody was talking about it. So it spread like wildfire. Many people said many things. So everybody is trying and giving their own opinions about the incident. Some old men bravely shook their heads and said, "This is most auspicious for Kapila. This means royalty." So they were like, yes, this is something very nice that has happened, and Kapila is very lucky. He will be a part of something very royal. Maybe he's a king. He's crowned a king by somebody. So they felt very positive about this incident. Who has ever heard a snake protecting a sleeping person from the heat of the sun? So they're just wondering that we have never heard of this kind of a thing. And this is something which is really very special. This is not something which commonly happens. Everyone believed that Kapila would one day be a king. And everybody was of the same feeling that there's something very good has happened with him, because it is very uncommon and he would surely be a king one day. Once Kasia asked Kapila, "Will you forget me when you become a king?" So they were just talking and he's saying, "Will you forget me, my friend? Don't laugh. Everybody says you will be a king one day." So they're both having a conversation. He's laughing that, "Oh my God, see, I am not a king," and my friend is saying that you will forget me. How can I forget my friend? He's such a fast friend of mine. And Kapila affectionately replies, what does he say? "How can I forget you, my friend? If I become a king, I will make you a minister." So he says, if I become a king, I will surely make you my minister. And Kapila often wondered whether he would really become a king. Now he was a cowherd. He was taking care of the cattle. So he also wondered, how can I be a king? Is there any possibility? By and by, he lost interest in his work as a cowherd. So he was now losing interest. He was not interested in cattle anymore or taking them out for grazing or just taking care of them. He was just not finding it interesting anymore. Not long after this, he left Kasia's house and went to Puri. At Puri, he wandered near the temple and lived on the charity of the pilgrims. So he left his job as a cowherd and he went to a place called Puri. And at Puri, what he did, he was just staying near a temple and he was just relying on the charity of the people. He did not have anything. He had no job. He had nobody to take care of him. So he was just relying on the charity of the pilgrims. People, those who are worship, go to a temple and worship. They are called the pilgrims, and they used to give him something or the other for eating. So he would just manage with the charity of the pilgrims. At that time, Bhanudeva was the king of Odisha. Now earlier it was called as Orissa and now it is called as Odisha. New name for the state. It's one of the states. You all studied in SST about it. One day as he was going round the temple, his eyes fell upon Kapila. Kapila was good looking and well built. So once Bhanudeva was just going around the temple and he saw a very smart, well built boy and he thought that yes, he's very nice. The king, who had no son, took a fancy to the boy. Who are you, young man? So he's going and talking to the boy and he's saying, oh, who are you? So then Kapila is replying that I am a Kshatriya boy and looking for some work. So he says that I am a Kshatriya and I'm looking for some work. The king was pleased with his answer. Would you like to work in the palace? He asked. So the king is asking that, okay, would you like, when he said, I want some work, so he said, will you like to work in the palace? Soon Kapila became king's personal caretaker. So soon Kapila was working very hard, so he became king's personal caretaker. He should take care of the king. All his needs he used to cater to. His gentle manners, keen intelligence, and hard work soon made him the king's favorite. And he was a boy who possessed a lot of good things. His mannerism was wonderful. He was very intelligent. He was very hardworking. So he became the king's favorite. Since King Bhanudeva had no son, he loved Kapila as his own. So the king did not have any child, did not have a son. So he started loving Kapila as his own son. Why don't I adopt him as my son? He thought to himself. So the king a thought came to his mind. Then the king thought that let me adopt him as my son. As a king's thought do not take time to turn into action, Kapila was soon adopted as his son. So just a thought came to his mind and it was executed. He adopted him as his son. Kapila was carefully educated. Now he wasn't very well educated earlier and he did not go to a proper school. So he was given education. Besides learning from books, he learned horsemanship or horse riding and he learned swordsmanship and archery. How to use a sword, how to fight with a sword, and how to use bow and arrow. And soon became the captain of the army. So he was a virtuous boy and he was quick in learning things. So soon he became the captain of the army. When he became the captain of the army, he won many battles for the king. And he was a virtuous boy, so he gained popularity, he became very famous, and everybody started liking him. In his last days, King Bhanudeva called his ministers and said, all of you know I have adopted Kapila as my son. It is my desire that after my death, he is crowned the king. He should be the king. So in the last days means he was about to die. So the king says that I am about to die. So I want that after me, Kapila should be crowned the king. He should be the king of this place. Thus Kapila, the cowherd boy, over whose head the snake had once spread its hood, became a king at last, and he was called as Kapilendra Deva. So he was just a cowherd boy who was taking care of the cattle, and with his good luck and his uh, good behavior and his good attributes, he became the king, a very intelligent and virtuous king. Now, Kasia, the old friend of Kapila, heard this great news. But Kasia, he was still a cowherd. He was just taking care of the cattle. He remembered Kapila's promise. Many were doubtful whether Kapila would keep his word. Now, Kasia was very happy when he came to know about his friend, that his friend was now a king. And he was just wondering that will he remember me now? And will he keep his promise? Will he keep his word? Keep his word means he would promise what he had promised. Will he be really sticking to his words? Will he not change now? It had been a long time since he had left Kasia's house. Many thought that he might not even remember him. But Kasia's faith in his friend made him decide to go to Puri and meet Kapila. But he had great trust and faith in his friend. So Kasia said, "No, I'm going to go and meet my dear friend. I am sure he's going to remember me." Having come to Puri, Kasia found that it was not easy to enter the king's palace. The king's palace is a huge structure and is protected, very well guarded by the guards. So nobody was allowing him to get into the palace. The gatekeepers wouldn't allow him in. Kasia made many attempts to enter the palace and meet his old friend. So he tried several times to get into the palace, but he was not at all allowed in. And then he told the guards about the story of their boyhood days, when they were small kids, when they were boys. He told them about that and the friendship with the king. But nobody listened to him. Kasia said to himself, "But I must see the king by hook or by crook." So he was really determined. He did not lose heart, and he said, "No, I am going to go and meet my friend. Though he is a king now, I have to take out something. I have to think of something, some plan, so that I can meet the king." And he was sure that once he meets his friend, everything will be perfectly fine. That evening, he sat for a long time musing on a plan. So he was thinking. And then he thought of a plan. At night, like a thief, he scaled over the palace wall. He tried to climb up the palace wall. He was, of course, quickly caught and produced before the king next morning. "What do you have to say to yourself, you wretched thief?" So the king is asking that you are a thief and you're horrible and you're trying to enter the palace. So what will you like to say about yourself? Will you like to defend yourself? What is the reason that you were trying to enter the palace? Kasia stared at Kapila. "Oh, do you not recognize your old friend, the cowherd Kasia? Perhaps you will know me if I tell you of the snake with its hood over your head, sheltering you from the sun." So he finds it very awkward that he's not remembering, and he thought for a while he thought that maybe people were saying the truth. He doesn't remember me anymore. But then he says, "I'll remind you of a childhood incident, that your head was protected by the hood of a snake, and that time people said you'll be a king, and that's absolutely right. Often I came to your palace gate and begged to be let in." So he's saying, "I came and I begged again and again. I told the guards repeatedly that please let me in. I want to meet the king, but nobody allowed me. I was refused by the guards every time. Then I decided that I could meet you only if I entered the palace as a thief." And then he's telling, "I thought that the only way I could meet my friend was if I tried to enter the palace like a thief." From his royal throne, the king came down embraced Kasia and received him with great honor. So the king, he realized that yes, he remembered he was his friend. So he stepped down from his throne and he came and he hugged his friend, he embraced him lovingly and received him with great honor. The next day, Kasia was appointed as one of the king's ministers and his chief advisor. So he kept his promise. He had promised him just like that one day that if I become a king, I'll make you the minister. So he kept his word, he kept the promise, and he made his friend one of the advisors to him, and he became a minister. And this is how Kapila kept his promise to his old friend. So the story ends at a very pleasant note when two friends meet and one is already a king, the other one becomes a minister. It's a very happy ending. I hope you all enjoyed the story. You've understood it well. So keep studying, stay happy and stay curious. Thank you so much.